Welcome back to another Euro Fantasy video and podcast. This will be the team selection for Matchday 3, the final game week of the group stages. And remember, we do get unlimited transfers in Matchday 4 for the knockout stages as we enter the round of 16. But the plan is to activate the Limitless in Matchday 3, which I discussed from the very beginning in my chip strategy guide a couple of weeks ago. I was always going to use the Limitless in either Matchday 2 or 3, and I'll be using it in Matchday 3 and saving the wildcard for Matchday 5 unless I'm very happy with my team going into the quarterfinals. But we'll talk about that when the time comes. Smash the like button of this video and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this to the 200 likes overall and to keep on pushing towards 25,000 subscribers, which is our next big aim on the YouTube channel. And I'll also be reviewing how Matchday 2 is going so far. And I say this because this video is recorded on Saturday afternoon after Georgia have played Czech Republic in that 1-1 draw and before the likes of Portugal and Belgium have played. And that Portugal game is especially important because if they win and they secure qualification, they also could rotate quite heavily in Matchday 3 and still get a result against Georgia and finish in top spot. So that's why I'm going to discuss some alternative picks on the Limitless and show you an updated team for that chip because I'll be using it myself and I'll be discussing the best 15-man squad for the Limitless. Let's get straight into this video and podcast though and see the Matchday 2 performance. All the points you'll see and the rank are from the Friday matches after those were completed and before any of the Saturday games have begun and the substitutions I may have made, which has taken a few points away. But you will see my final score and my rank as we go into the deadline stream for Matchday 3 on Sunday, the 23rd of June. So be sure not to miss it by subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell. But let's now start off with the goalkeeper. And finally, there was a decent return in this position. It was surprising to many to see the Netherlands keep a clean sheet against France in a 0-0 draw, and Verbruggen produced 7 points as a result, building upon his solid display back in Matchday 1 against Poland. So that's 11 points throughout this competition for the Dutch number 1, and I think he's one of the best goalkeepers in Euro Fantasy. And going into Matchday 4, when we have unlimited transfers, Verbruggen will definitely be on my watch list. I'll probably maintain him, but in Matchday 3 on the Limitless, I do think there are better alternatives on paper, but he's still right up there. I think easily in the top 5, but is he going to be in the top 2? That's something I'll discuss very soon when I show you the updated Limitless team in the team selection portion of this video. But Verbruggen delivered 7 points and there's no need to bring on Diogo Costa. I was quite impressed by the defensive line, and Mark Gay has delivered yet again with 5 points despite the fact that England conceded to a wonder goal. But the ball recovery potential is certainly there, and at 4.5 million to cover England defensively is pretty much a godsend, and I think he's excellent value for money even over the likes of Trippier, Trent Alexander-Arnold and John Stones. So all good options in their own right, but I think Mark Gay is nailed on. He's solid and dependable. He's putting in good performances. He made one mistake against Denmark but made up for it with a ball recovery. So I'm very impressed by his performances considering that he doesn't have much experience on the international stage. And my second defender is also very similar in that regard. Mittelstadt produced 10 points with an assist, a couple of ball recoveries and a yellow card, but that clean sheet was also very solid there for the left back, and he might be rotated for David Raum in Matchday 3 as Germany have already qualified. But it's worth remembering before the deadline we get the Germany lineup alongside every single other team in Group A, so we can see if Mittelstadt starts or not, and if he does, I still think it's a great option on the Limitless, Wildcard or using free transfers. But there is a possibility that David Raum takes his place for Matchday 3 only. Now my other two defenders in the starting 11 haven't played yet because I made a contentious decision to sub off DeMarco, who delivered 4 points, for Wout Faes because he delivered 5 points back in Matchday 1 despite conceding and losing to Slovakia, and Wout Faes has the ball recovery potential. By the time you see this video or listen to it, you will find out how he did and if that was a very poor decision or not. But I still think in terms of kind of justifying and looking at the process of that substitution, Wout Faes has the ball recoveries potential. He's facing Romania, who do struggle for goals typically, although they were very impressive against Ukraine back in Matchday 1. And Belgium have a very good record overall, which is why they are still third in the FIFA World Rankings. And Wout Faes at 4 million is one of the best value defenders in the game. But the final defender is Joao Cancelo, who starts against Turkey, and once that game begins, we'll see if he can deliver any attacking returns, ball recoveries, or a clean sheet. But Joao Cancelo will always be up there as one of the best defenders on paper. He's very expensive, but he's a perfect kind of option on the Limitless. There is the possibility that he is rotated in Matchday 3 if Portugal go on to win against Turkey, and that's where you could go for a Gonzalo Inacio or maybe Antonio Silva, one of these fringe Portugal defenders who've got a great chance of keeping that clean sheet against Georgia. The standout player of my match day was Pierre-Emil Højbjerg, who was man of the match against England and delivered 7 points as Denmark drew 1-1, and they've got a chance of topping the group going into match day 3. And despite not winning a game at this tournament, I think Denmark have some very interesting options, particularly in the midfield. Højbjerg offers that value at 5.5 million. Then you have a more attacking option in Eriksen, who can take set pieces. He makes a lot of runs into the box for the national team. So I think those two in particular really stand out. But their defenders and goalkeeper aren't as impressive as I thought they would be, but maybe a matchday 3 against Serbia is where they finally keep a clean sheet. My second midfielder is Jamal Musiala, who I bought in matchday 2 during the deadline stream. It was between him and Florian Wirtz. Luckily, I went for Musiala. There was an 8-point swing because of it, but I did go for Kai Havertz up front, and that was a disastrous transfer because I captained him over Musiala and Mittelstadt, and obviously if I made no transfers whatsoever, Mittelstadt would have been my captain, and that would have been a very healthy return with a double-digit haul by him. But Musiala getting 9 points is still very impressive. It was İlkay Gündoğan, though, who stole the show with 14 points overall, producing a goal and assist, and I think Gündoğan is probably the second best German midfielder, but that's very close between him and Musiala. The third midfielder in my team, though, is De Bruyne against Romania, so let's see how he performs. I'm still very optimistic, and Kevin De Bruyne is one of the best players in the world. He can sometimes be jaded physically very early on in games, but when he's on it, he can create so many chances, and he's capable of scoring goals from outside the box. And the same goes for the last midfielder, who is Bruno Fernandes, although not to the same degree, but the level of chance creation is arguably even higher with Bruno Fernandes, and he's one of Portugal's most important players. He could be rested in matchday 3 should Portugal win against Turkey, so that's a very crucial game that is yet to be played at the time of this recording, which could change things on the Limitless. I mentioned Kai Havertz only got 1 point after being subbed off before 60 minutes, but Harry Kane scored the opening goal against Denmark, but he was also heavily involved in the goal that England conceded by giving the ball away, and there was a lot of criticism directed towards him by the British media, and before that you had other players in the limelight. But I have to say Harry Kane is still England's all-time record goal scorer, and he's the one who steps up in these big games, and he is the main threat in the attacking areas, despite all these great options like Bellingham, Foden and Saka right behind him. You've even got very good players on the bench like Ollie Watkins, Eze, Bowen and Palmer. So I think England are spoiled in terms of their riches, but Harry Kane isn't a player you want to sub off, and even Gareth Southgate did that in matchday 2, which causes some concerns going into future match days. I still think England will qualify, potentially in top spot, but they have to improve the way they're playing. Even Harry Kane said in his interview that England don't know when to press and that things are a bit confusing for the players. So that doesn't bode well for the manager and this crop going into the knockouts, but I still think Harry Kane and all the other England players can sort things out. But I think that midfield balance is the key issue, and that's why things aren't clicking at the moment. But my final forward is Romelu Lukaku. I'm certainly hoping that things click in front of goal for him. He had so many big chances in matchday 1, 3 in fact, and he had 2 goals disallowed. So I wouldn't be surprised if he produced a big haul against Romania, but I didn't change the captaincy, and in the end, I stuck with a 6-point return from my captain. I had some tough decisions to make during the substitution window, and one of them was bringing on Wout Faes for DeMarco and also keeping Harry Kane as my captain with a base score of 6, which the likes of Lukaku, De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandes and other key assets who play on Saturday evening like Cristiano Ronaldo could easily break. There's no denying that. So in terms of matchday points, it's 56, but I did take off DeMarco, Havertz and Szoboszlai, so it's now going to be 50 points as my matchday score, with the likes of Wout Faes, Cancelo, De Bruyne, Fernandes and Lukaku yet to play at the time of this recording. But I did hit 100 points overall, and my rank is 757,000, so that's a big improvement from what it was in the last team selection video. It was approximately 2 2.1 million, but it's still not good enough. It has been a poor start, but Matchday 2 has finally seen me go on the right track and make some big progress to deliver that green arrow. Be sure to join the Euro Fantasy League. The code is JCRHjQ with a lowercase j. Everything else is in capitals. But let's now get into the team selection portion of this video, which involves an updated Limitless team. Things aren't going well for one of the favourites of this competition in England, but they're still top of their group with 4 points, and I'm very confident of a clean sheet against Slovenia in Matchday 3, and that's why I might transition to a defensive double-up instead of going for 2 England attackers, which is still a possibility, but at the moment they're struggling to score goals, a bit like other teams in this tournament like France, who have only scored for an own goal in this tournament so far, which is insane. But I have to say, with England, they always kind of step up defensively in the Euros and World Cups, and that's why Pickford has a great record for the national team, and he makes this draft. He does play on the 25th of June, so my second goalkeeper will be playing on the 26th. Make sure that both your goalkeepers on the Limitless, the Wildcard, or your normal teams play on separate days to maximize your chances of getting points through the substitutions. Although rotation is possible, I expect France to go strong in Matchday 3 because Austria are on 3 points and you have the Netherlands who are joint top with France with 4, and that's why I think France will go for Jules Koundé at the back with Saliba, Theo Hernandez and Maignan in goal, and all of them make for great options on the Limitless in Matchday 3. And to be fair, Poland have scored in both of their games so far, and they scored the opening goal against the Netherlands, but I think France have a great chance of a clean sheet, and I'd actually advocate a defensive double-up potentially, especially with the lack of attacking options they have at the moment. Only 1 goal scored in this competition, which was actually an own goal by an Austrian player, but I think they'll finally score some goals of their own in this matchup, win quite comfortably, and a 2-0 win is probably very likely on paper, but who knows with football, and Lewandowski has just returned from injury, and that could be a massive boost if he can start the game from the get-go, which I expect to be the case. But I'm going for Jules Koundé for the ball recoveries, and also a certain Theo Hernandez for the attacking potential. He can get some ball recoveries of his own, but he doesn't get as many as Saliba, Upamecano or Jules Koundé. There's no doubt about that, but it's always exciting to go for these expensive options at the back with a lot of attacking potential, and Theo Hernandez has a lot of creativity down that left flank. My third defender in the starting 11 is Virgil van Dijk from the same group against Austria. I'm not as convinced about this pick, and I might change it in the end, I'm going to be quite honest. And as I mentioned earlier, one thing I could do is double up on England defensively. Go for Mark Gay, who is very good in terms of ball recoveries, if not Kieran Trippier for a bit more attacking potential, or a John Stones, and he would displace, or any of them would displace Virgil van Dijk. But the final defender is a massive rotation risk. Luckily enough, his country have secured top spot in their group, so I think Grimaldo will start, and he's got attacking potential, ball recoveries, and he had a great season for Bayer Leverkusen. He's got a couple of assists with the Spanish national team already, despite not playing that many minutes, but that is always the big concern with Grimaldo, a bit like Frimpong as well, who, if we get news that he starts, you might want to go for him over Virgil van Dijk as well. But ball recoveries is so important in Euro Fantasy, just like in the Champions League, which I also cover on this channel. So you've got the ball recovery potential with Van Dijk and Koundé, and 2 left backs with so much assist threat, they can get the odd goal, and Grimaldo and Theo Hernandez are 2 of the most exciting defenders in the game. Some of the picks in this midfield might surprise you, but Jude Bellingham won't be one of those players. He was terrific in Matchday 1 against Serbia, earning player of the match, scoring a bullet header and delivering 12 points, but he was very poor in Matchday 2 against Denmark, so he needs to step up big time against Slovenia, which I think he will do, and the same goes for the English national team in general. This is a great opportunity to get some confidence back, score a couple of goals, and be convincing for once in this Euros tournament, and that really could be the difference going into the knockouts. Now, if I had to pick between Bellingham and Harry Kane, I'm going to pick the striker all day long because Kane has a great record for the national team. Bellingham not so much. He is young, he's only going to get better and better, but if you want to go for an England midfielder who is kind of tried and tested at Euros and World Cups, Bukayo Saka is the one to go for. But I just have that feeling that Bellingham will be the one to step up in the big moments, which he did against Serbia in the opening game there for England. Now, my second midfielder might not start, but I think he will in Jamal Musiala. I've seen a few predicted lineups on the UEFA website and also some verifiable and reliable sources, and Musiala was in all of those teams, and I expect him to start because Germany haven't secured top spot yet. They're facing Switzerland, who are their main competitors for that number one spot in Group A, but of course Germany have qualified already, and that's why you could see a bit of rotation in certain positions, like David Raum instead of Mittelstadt or Füllkrug starting over Kai Havertz. But Musiala is so important to this German team with his dribbling, the way he opens up defences with his turns, and he is one of the most agile players in the world. There's no denying that, and he's a great player to watch. I think he's going to start. Switzerland isn't easy, but I'd still recommend, or at least consider, a German midfield double up, and instead of Florian Wirtz, I'm going for Gundogan, who got 14 points in Matchday 2 after winning a penalty in Matchday 1, and he probably would have taken it if he wasn't in such poor condition because he was kicked to get that penalty, which Kai Havertz eventually converted. But Gundogan for me is probably a step above Wirtz at the moment, but I think Musiala is the best German attacker and arguably the best German asset in every single position, although Mittelstadt at 4 million might have something to say as well. My fourth and final midfielder in the starting 11 is Eriksen, who scored in the last meeting between Denmark and Serbia, and in terms of the recent matchups, it's been no contest. Denmark have wiped the floor with Serbia, scoring 2 or 3 goals every single time in the last 3 matches, and I think Eriksen could be a great option in Euro Fantasy. The forward line remains virtually untouched, with Harry Kane retaining his spot against Slovenia. That is a great fixture for me. Despite Slovenia's great form, they're unbeaten in over 11 games now, I believe, in all competitions, which is very impressive. They beat Portugal back in March. They're unbeaten at this Euros tournament as a debutant, which is very impressive. But I'm going for Harry Kane here in the forward line. I don't think much will change my mind unless a reliable source indicates that Kane will be dropped, which is almost impossible in my opinion. He might be subbed off early as he was in Matchday 2, but I think there's almost no chance that he's dropped for the likes of Watkins or Ivan Toney. But my final forward in this starting 11 and the final player is Romelu Lukaku against Ukraine. If he has another disaster class in Matchday 2 though, I might want to look elsewhere because Lukaku's either brilliant or absolutely frustrating for the national team. And to be fair, that pretty much applies throughout his entire career at club level as well. There are certain games where he's unplayable, he scores 2 or 3 goals, and he just looks like an absolute unit up front. Then there's other times where he can't hit a barn door and he misses the easiest of chances. And a lot of football players are like that, you know, you can't get everything right, but Lukaku can be erratic in front of goal at the worst of his days, but he can also be absolutely clinical when he's in the zone and completely focused, and I'm hoping he can do that in Matchday 2 and 3 because Lukaku's ceiling is extremely high. You could argue I've saved some of the best until last, with Diogo Costa, Cancelo, Ronaldo and De Bruyne all on my bench because of the way that substitutions work in Euro Fantasy, but I have to say all the Portuguese players are at risk of rotation in Matchday 3 should they beat Turkey in Matchday 2, and of course you'll find out by the time you watch this video and listen to this podcast, and that's why I'll discuss alternatives very soon. Kevin De Bruyne will play no matter what, and the main issue with him has always been the fitness and the amount of injuries he's been picking up, especially in recent years. Trossard isn't as reliable in terms of minutes, but I think Lukaku and De Bruyne are as nailed on as you can get from a top nation at the Euros. But in terms of the captaincy, on the 23rd of June, I'm looking to go for Musiala if he starts, and we'll talk about this during the deadline stream on Sunday. Be sure not to miss it. On the 24th, I don't really have many alternatives, just the one player in Grimaldo, so I'll captain him. On the 25th, I'll likely go for Harry Kane, and on the 26th, I'd probably go for a Portugal attacker. Now, if Ronaldo starts, or if we have that feeling that he's going to start, he'll be my final Limitless team. I'll probably captain him on the 26th, but I could also go for Diogo Jota as an alternative, which I'll show you next in this section coming up, where everything is about alternative picks for the Limitless, and some of these can be used for your updated wildcard teams as well. He hasn't started a single game at the Euros, but I would consider David Raya against Albania because I think he could actually displace Unai Simon for Matchday 3 only. And I've said this from the beginning, before Matchday 1 even started, I could see David Raya getting 1 start in the group phase, and given Spain's situation, securing top spot, I think it's going to happen now, and all the predicted lineups I've seen have David Raya in there, so he could be a great way of covering that Spanish defence. I've also gone for Casteels, but I have to be honest, I'd say Wout Faes is a better way of covering Belgium defensively because of ball recoveries, and if you're not using the Limitless, just in terms of pure value, Wout Faes is excellent at just 4 million. In the defence, I've gone for Frimpong, so if we get any inclination that he starts, he could be the one to go for because of that pure attacking potential, particularly the assist threat he poses, and he had a great season at Bayer Leverkusen, just like Grimaldo, and both of them are identical in Euro Fantasy because of how not nailed on they are. They just aren't first choice, unfortunately, but Frimpong is playing as a right winger at the moment, which he did against France, and in recent friendlies, that has been the case as well. And in terms of other Portugal defenders, instead of Joao Cancelo, there's obviously Ruben Dias, Pepe, Antonio Silva, Gonzalo Inacio. You've also got a few others like Nuno Mendes, Diogo Dalot. The list goes on, but Joao Cancelo is the standout. It's just a matter of that Matchday 2 result against Turkey and whether fringe players are expected to start in Matchday 3. I just think Portugal have one of the best chances of a clean sheet, irrespective of if they rotate or go very strong for the final game of the group stages. I've also gone for Dragusin, a budget defender who plays Slovakia, and of course Romania are an underrated team at this Euros. They were so impressive against Ukraine in Matchday 1. They took the world by storm, and we've always kind of looked at them as a solid defensive unit, but for them to score 3 goals was also quite surprising. But Dragusin has the ball recovery potential, and I think a clean sheet is likely against Slovakia as well. I've gone for Saliba, so if you aren't going for Koundé or Theo Hernandez, I think Saliba is the next best French defender, and then you've got Maignan in goal, of course, if you want to go in a different direction to cover the French national team in this area. And I've gone for Kieran Trippier, but I have to say, I think Mark Gay is probably the best England defender, period. I know on a Limitless you'd want to go for more expensive players, but I have to say Mark Gay for me is probably my favourite overall because of ball recoveries. It's as simple as that, and Trippier doesn't look quite right on the left-hand side. It's not natural to him. If he was playing on the right, I think he could deliver some great crosses, and that's where he'd be so appealing as a Euro Fantasy asset. In the midfield, I've gone for Xavi Simons, who was very unlucky not to get that goal against France. Szoboszlai, who has been kind of treated in a different way going into Matchday 3. He has been training separately, but he's expected to return to full team training very soon. So that's one to monitor. But against Scotland, that is a great fixture. I've also gone for Oyarzabal, so I think that could be a great pick. The problem with him is the minutes are just not even far from nailed. I mean, he's literally not starting games whatsoever. Even in friendlies, he comes off the bench, he scores a hat-trick, but he plays like 20 minutes on average for the Spanish national team. So that's a big problem, but I think he will start in Matchday 3, and he's got such a great goal-scoring record for La Roja that I think he could really deliver in Matchday 3 and in no other match day throughout this entire competition. But Oyarzabal is a mega differential at the heart of this midfield, and I've gone for Wirtz and Saka as more template picks. Very expensive, very typical, nothing really creative there. Oyarzabal is definitely the one who could really be a game changer for your Euro Fantasy team and season. Then the front three includes Jota, Ferran Torres and Mbappe if he's available to start against Poland, and I think that will be the case, but it's still something to monitor. Some reports indicated straight after the incident happened and he broke his nose that Mbappe won't feature again during the group stages, and I think one recent report on Saturday morning indicates that Mbappe will play an under-21 game to build his fitness back up. That doesn't bode well for Matchday 3 against Poland, so it has to be said that's only if we get confirmation that Mbappe is in contention to start against Poland, and that doesn't look very likely if you look at all the reports that have been circulating over the last couple of days. There are even more alternatives, of course, and it would just take forever to go for every single one of them. Instead of Mbappe, just to kind of change things up a little bit, let's say he's not going to be available and it's looking very unlikely that he's going to get the nod. He'll probably be on the bench and be an unused substitute. If that's the case, for Matchday 3, I'd also consider a João Felix. That is something else to consider. But would I go for two Portuguese forwards? Not necessarily, to be honest, but I think João Felix and Diogo Jota are very likely to start against Georgia if they don't get that result against Turkey, which is so important. I think that just changes things from now until the deadline. That is the one game that could really change the complexion of this Limitless, and the same goes for other chips as well, whether it's the Wildcard or using 2 free transfers too. I also like, you know what, I have to say this, he might not be a great FPL option, but one player I think that could really surprise us is actually another Liverpool forward in Cody Gakpo, and you have Memphis Depay, who has a tremendous record for Netherlands. So one of those 2 players could really be the game changer as well in the forward position against Austria, despite the fact that they've been playing very well at this Euros tournament too. And once again, I have to just reiterate it and make it very clear with the visuals as well. Instead of Trippier, I'd recommend Mark Gay as the best England defender, despite only being 4.5 million and such a cheap option. So there's still 4.5 million remaining with this alternative 50-man squad. But what I wanted to do was show you alternative picks to include in your Limitless team. This isn't necessarily an alternative Limitless squad, if you catch my drift. But thank you very much for watching this video. All your support is massively appreciated. Make sure to join my Euro Fantasy League. The code is on screen on YouTube, and there is an auto join link in the description below. You can also copy the league code and join that way. But thank you very much for watching this video and listen to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this video to over 200 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards 25,000 subscribers, which is our next big objective. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links, such as my Patreon and the championships, for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. Also join the Discord server, Euro Fantasy League, Draft Town, and Spotify. Leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way to supporting my channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Matchday 2, 3, and the rest of the tournament. And I'll see you next time.